Okay, guys, we are back with another episode of Find Your Film. This episode is our, I don't know, is it bi-monthly? Is that, Eric Holmes, is that the right way to say it, bi-monthly, when you do two things every month? Like, for me, it's like work, two things. Is it bi-monthly? Is that
I believe so.
Bruce Berkey,
I'm not a good words guy.
But yeah, Bruce, you're the only smart one out of the three. Is it bi-monthly? Is that the right way to say it when we do the director spotlights? Come on.
Sounds right to me.
If it sounds right.
Bi-monthly.
Bi-monthly. What I mean by bi-monthly is twice a month we spotlight a filmmaker and his or her works. So the last one we did was a couple of weeks ago. We did Be Natural, the Untold Story of Elise Guy Blaché. We spotlighted that documentary directed by Pamela B. Green. That's all thanks to Eric Holmes for that wonderful discovery. If you're actually watching us on YouTube right now, he is calling himself Fury De Palma. That has nothing to do with this episode. Actually, it may have a little bit to do with this episode because we're going to go into a little bit of a blue period on this episode as well. Now, it is Bruce Perkey's turn for the director spotlight for Find Your Film. This was a very interesting choice from Bruce Perkey. To be honest, I have a narrow window when it comes to cinema. I love Westerns and noirs particularly. So, Bruce, when you mentioned your choice, I was not too thrilled. I was expecting something good. Bruce, can you tell our listeners your pick for this week? Why is this filmmaker on your radar? Why was this is this a person very important to discuss about?
Satoshi Kon, or Satoshi Kon, if sometimes they say it Kon Satoshi. I'm going to say Satoshi Kon for the rest of the time because that's the best way I know how to say it. But he is somebody who I believe to me, I think he actually addresses exactly what you're concerned with. And that is, there's a lot of people who that kind of think like anime isn't really their cup of tea. And I feel like in any category, as film watchers, we might miss something great because it's not our cup of tea. Like if I didn't like noirs, I might miss some great movies because I don't like noirs or horror or anime. And I honestly don't have a huge amount of anime in my repertoire. But that being said, Satoshi Kon kept coming across my plate. I kept seeing Perfect Blue especially being mentioned in a lot of lists, and I kept seeing it pop up. And I finally last year watched Perfect Blue, and then I went back to see, well, who is this Satoshi Kon guy? And then I see that he died in 2010. He only lived for I do the math here, he wasn't even quite 50 or maybe just 50. And he only had 4 major movies. And I was like, well, let's go look at some more. And by the time I dug into 2 of his movies, and then the third movie, I was blown away that I had never encountered his movies. And I thought that they were not only great animated movies, but I thought they were just fantastic movies, dead stop. So that's why I brought it.
Dead stop, Fury De Palma, Eric Holmes. Were you excited when Bruce Perkey decided Satoshi Kon? Was this person in your purview, in your radar? Was he a big part of your cinematic life before Bruce Perkey even mentioned the name or the very thought of?
The name, no. I was familiar with his movie Paprika. Perfect Blue was one of those I couldn't remember. I have a little bit of anime background, but not a whole lot. About the only thing I've seen a lot of is the anime Gantz. I like that one a lot. But yeah, I mean, this was the first time like really kind of digging into them, and yeah, I will forever remember Satoshi Kon, even though I can't say his name properly. I apologize. But yeah, dude makes some weird movies, and I like weird movies. So this was kind of right up my alley. And to Bruce's point, yeah, I think a lot of anime is one of those things that anime has its fans, but the people that aren't huge fans of anime seem to be really turned off by it for some reason. And I wonder if it's something along the lines of maybe to bring it to something that people can be familiar with. If all you know about movies is comic book movies and you're not into comic book movies, maybe you say you don't like movies and stay away from it. Like anime has such a wide like anime is a genre, but anime has like every genre within the genre. So it's almost like I don't know. It's just wide open. So to say you don't like anime might be a bit ignorant because there's so much more to it than just what you might know on the surface, having not dug into it. I don't know if that's fair or not, but that's kind of what I suspect.
Yeah, I've been pretty ignorant of the genre. I just never really, when I was thinking Pixar, Disney, obviously that's not anime, but animation or anime, anything, I always looked at it, Bruce and Eric, is just kind of a cartoons, Looney Tunes,
Yeah.
scribbles, stop motion animation. What's that? What they spent years? They spent years doing the little thing. They're moving a bunch of clay sticky wikis to move. What is that about? So I'm ignorant and stupid about it. But the cool thing about Satoshi Kon is the backdrop is the idea that you were talking about, Paranoia Agent, the series he worked on, right? But like you said, he did 4 movies: Perfect Blue, Tokyo Godfathers, Millennium Actress, and Eric, you mentioned Paprika. It is sort of romanticized or interesting whenever a filmmaker or actor, James Dean has only done 3 films. When they're, Sal Mineo has only done several films, or when you have, or Jean Vigo has only done several hours worth of film. So I guess for me, what was the morbid fascination with Satoshi Kon was he died really young, and he only had very little to leave us with. That said, Bruce, it's not very accurate when I say he left us with very little, right? And is that one of the reasons why you're amazed by the breadth of his work, maybe? I'm assuming.
I was amazed by the breadth of his work. I was amazed by the depth of his work. And to me, he's just so cinematic. Like and you think of animation as being a little more fantasy, sci-fi, even the Studio Ghibli stuff, you think of it being it's kind of fantasy, but it's, elevated. But his is so cinematic and so related to other filmmaking that it kind of blew me away. And I just gobbled up everything he had within like a year, and he's become one of my favorite filmmakers. Everything he did, I love what he does. And also he has impacted so many great modern filmmakers in such a short amount of time. He's had a huge impact on them as well. So,
yeah, like Darren Aronofsky, I think Satoshi Kon was inspired by the works of Black Swan. That's why he actually
reverse. You mean?
I was kidding. I was kidding. Joke with that. Yeah, Eric Holmes, did you do some of the research with Darren Aronofsky, Black Swan and Perfect Blue? Wait till you see some of these shots where Bruce, you're going to get into that in a little bit. Wait till you hear what Bruce has to say about Darren Aronofsky, Black Swan, Requiem for a Dream, and Perfect Blue. Now, I don't know where you want to start with this Satoshi Kon discussion, Bruce Perky. You can rebut me on this. I was thinking, because listeners, okay, I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. Yes, I'm going to throw Eric Holmes under the bus.
Do it.
Here we go. No, this is a friendly throwing under the bus, okay? Because here's the thing. First of all, I'm a coward because I'm the only one who hasn't seen Tenet, okay? So I'm the one who doesn't go out, and these guys actually brave their health, life, and limb to actually watch cinema. So they're better than me. So I'm just kidding when I talk about this. Eric Holmes. Okay, Bruce Perky assigned us a couple weeks ago, to do Millennium Actress and Perfect Blue, 2 seminal films from Satoshi Kon. Okay, I guess maybe each of the films are seminal. Eric Holmes went with Paprika. I think Paprika is the last one. I don't think that's actually an error. That's actually lends a lot more depth to this episode, which I have not seen Paprika because that was not my homework. But I'm glad that Eric Holmes actually picked something different, because I want to know about Paprika. And Bruce, would you want to start with Paprika, or do you want to go someplace else? And as Bruce Perky, listeners, if you don't see the YouTube, he just held up the Blu-ray copy of Paprika. Easy access to find, Bruce? Is it cheap, or is it not cheap? Is it hard to get, or not? Nah.
Well, you can rent them all streaming, but it's weird. Like none of these are, I don't think, streaming free on any platform that I could find. You can buy all of the Blu-rays, which I would advise to do, because these have a way of disappearing. And in fact, a lot of these did disappear, and got reissued in the relative recent past. So I wouldn't be surprised if they disappear again, although he's become kind of loved. So yeah.
I'm sorry, Bruce, because it disappears because of the demand for Satoshi Kon, or it disappears because you're thinking maybe the distributors don't do a good job of doing some kind of real good physical media release. Maybe
Or it's
both.
just niche enough that it's not going to get a mass broad appeal. So then it'll go out of print again, and then you have to get it again. You know how that kind of thing is. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these end up getting Criterion editions, and that would help. And I would not be surprised at all if they do. So
Okay, I am going to check out of this next segment. It's Paprika, released in 2006. I'm assuming it's the last film that Satoshi Kon directed. It's quote unquote on Wikipedia, a Japanese science fiction psychological thriller. Eric Holmes, just your initial thoughts on Paprika, and obviously, you guys are laughing because it's much more in depth than that. What I just try to explain. But Eric, your thoughts on Paprika? What do you want to say about Paprika before the big whale Bruce Perky comes down with the cinematic waves of knowledge on Paprika?
My thoughts on Paprika were very similar to my thoughts on Tenet. I liked it a lot, and oh man, this movie was really tough for me to follow because it's actually the story is really similar to Inception because it plays a lot with dreams, and it kind of goes back and forth a lot. And unlike Inception, the dreams in this are kind of what you would expect from a movie about dreams because everything's really fantastical but kind of normal. But whereas Inception was a little more, the dreams were a little more grounded given the story. But yeah, this one was a trip. It was I'm going to try to explain what it's about, but I'm having trouble here. There's this cop, and he's haunted by his past of killing someone, and then but he's in these dreams, and then there's this girl Paprika that comes in and helps him out, and she's kind of like because it's not like an Inception thing. It almost felt like a prostitution.
she's almost like an AI. Yeah, but
yeah, I got some like little prostitution sort of things in there, but yeah, this movie's weird
because I think she's like almost like a fantasy version of a woman that you would get in that weird machine.
Yeah.
It's the most mind-bending of all of the Satoshi Kon movies for sure. So,
and that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
Eric, your description of Paprika, it's like you actually went into my Chromebook and looked at my dating. So I don't know what that's about, Eric. Not very cool. But no, Bruce, you were saying about Paprika.
I was going to say, he mentions Inception, and quite a few people have mentioned that Nolan took some things directly from this movie into Inception. There is a hallway scene that's very reminiscent of the hallway thing in Inception, but even more so, there is a scene that's an exact copy almost, where in Inception, she's on a street and she walks up and it ends up being a reflection in glass and the glass breaks. And that exact shot happens in Paprika. And of course, Paprika came out in 2006 and Inception came out in 2010. So there's definitely some ideas that Nolan got definite, like, direct inspiration from this movie.
Well,
this movie, though,
as long as he credits this, right? I'm sure he has to credit that Satoshi Kon, just like Tarantino does, right? Tarantino,
sure.
You know what, like Lady Snowblood, and right, guys, and Kill Bill. There's a direct line between those movies. I'm going to Google later to see if Nolan credits Satoshi Kon for Inception. If not, then really that third comment resonates even more regarding Tenet.
I'm not sure how you would credit it though, because like when you're watching a movie, it's not like there's little cliff notes at the bottom. Got this from blah blah blah. I got this from blah blah blah. Otherwise, like in every Tarantino movie, there'd just be a constant running titles at the bottom of got this from this movie. But I think if you have a movie where you take an actual shot, that's almost kind of like crediting it. It's like you've seen this, I've seen it, this is it. Let's
Yeah.
let's move on. I'm guessing that's about the closest you can come to crediting something as the movie's going, other than just doing the cliff notes on the bottom.
And you're
And
cool, Bruce.
there's a line definitely of like homage, and you can do that, and
Yeah.
it's homage too. I would say that this would be for anyone that wants to give Satoshi Kon a try. I would say end with Paprika.
Yeah.
Paprika is definitely the hardest to get your mind around, and it's one of those movies that you'll watch like Tenet or like some of these movies we talked about recently, where afterwards you're going to go watch the YouTube videos and like, okay, what does it all mean and how do you unravel it all? But I would say it's also probably it's super dazzling. I mean, it's beautiful and crazy, and you'll probably agree to this, Eric. The ongoing like weird dream parade thing is amazing. That thing is crazy.
Yeah, actually the music from the parade, it's like I can't hum it, but I know once we're done and I go to sleep tonight, it's just gonna be looping in the back of my head. It's like,
So Bruce,
but yeah, it's so colorful and vibrant and everything, but it's so weird. And there's something I don't want to say scary because it sounds like it's a horror movie, and this really isn't a horror movie. But there's kind of a sense of dread with a lot of this, and I can't quite put my finger on it. But yeah, it definitely moved me in a lot of ways, and I really enjoyed this, even though I can't quite wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
okay, it's kind of like I'm thinking of ending things. It's one of these kind of projects where you're not going to get a lot of things, right, Eric? Maybe, but then it's the actual experience of watching it, which makes
Yeah.
everything worthwhile.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a little bit of a story to Paprika, enough to kind of hang all the weirdness on, but a lot of it's just, at least for me, a lot of it was just brought out a bunch of different emotions and feelings, and some parts were funny, some parts were scary, some parts were like really sweet, but it was all kind of just like having a dream. You dream,
Yeah.
you wake up, you try to explain it, and you sound like an idiot. You sound like I do right now.
I was reading a whole bunch of reviews in the morning after. Actually, by the way, I actually watched Millennium Actress and Perfect Blue. I started at 3:30 in the morning, a little bit tired. I went back to back. I was thinking maybe that these little scribblings, these cartoons would be fun. Like little Bugs Bunny with the carrots and Wile E. Coyote running a lot, but a little bit heavy stuff. So still have the migraine in a good way. But yeah, so Paprika, I was reading reviews. Some people were saying this is the most amazing film I've ever seen. It's dazzling, visually sumptuous. And then the next review would be, I can't believe I wasted my time. I do not understand what this is about. Forget about it. His weakest film, that kind of stuff. So it got really mixed reviews, but mixed in the sense that makes you excited about watching Paprika, meaning you could really love it. You could possibly really dislike this movie. I thought that was interesting.
And that's the thing I would say about all of his movies. Like every single movie, he's never phoning it in. Like he is going for it, and they're so different. And you've only seen two, Greg, right? You've seen, Perfect Blue was his first movie, and then he goes and makes Millennium Actress. And you got to say, I mean, they're both his, but were they not very different?
In a sense, they were
Yeah.
different a lot. They were definitely different, and I can't wait to see Paprika. So again, Bruce, you just make a fine point. You really encourage listeners to finish up with Satoshi Kon's work with Paprika. That should be the sort of
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. I think you get your head around the other ones, because I would say Perfect Blue is probably the second most difficult. I would say Millennium Actress is a little more straightforward, but it plays with some of the same ideas. And then Tokyo Godfathers is the least trippy, but it's definitely him. So I would say you could start with any of those first three in whatever order you want. I personally say Perfect Blue and then Millennium Actress because they kind of go together in theme. But I would always end with Paprika. And I would say I would add into that his series that he was mostly involved. He created and basically directed a bunch of the episodes. And that's Paranoia Agent is also more on the Paprika side of things as far as weirdness. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling this whole Paranoia Agent and Paprika. It's like akin to when Miles Davis has that sound in the 50s with Gil Evans of Sketches of Spain and Kind of Blue, and then suddenly in the late 60s, early 70s, he goes with Bitches Brew and electric jazz fusion. It seems like do you think Paprika is something, it really stands out amongst his work because he really goes for it with his final film and not make it as maybe palatable? I mean, they're all complex, but maybe it's probably his most complex film. You'd say that as far as themes and visuals?
I would say it's the most complex as far as like narratively understanding it. I would say I don't know if it's necessarily his most complex, but kind of like we were talking about with Nolan, like you take Nolan versus a really standard narrative. I mean, Nolan is definitely going to take a lot more work to figure out exactly what's happening sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think it's more along that line as far as like it's a more like unraveling a puzzle as opposed, but it's a beautiful and interesting puzzle. And like Eric said, there's a basic, you can get a basic thread to it, but you also are going to be kind of like, I'm not sure exactly what happened there. So yeah.
Okay, so that is Paprika, released in 2006. I'm going to selfishly steer this course to his first anime film. And Eric Holmes, I want to hear your thoughts on Perfect Blue, released in 1997. You said that Perfect Blue was in your subconscious or conscious for a while because obviously even an ignoramus like me on anime, I did see some of those images from Perfect Blue ever since it was released. So was this the first time you ever saw Perfect Blue, and your overall thoughts regarding this? I don't know. This movie.
Front to back, yes. And speaking of filmmakers they kind of took from Satoshi Kon, this one to me is almost, as far as the story goes and kind of how the story's played out, is very similar to Inland Empire. If you guys remember that, where they're making, Laura Dern's making the movie, and then you kind of slip out of reality, but then it brings you back. And oh, okay, we just slipped out, and then it slips out of reality again, and it brings you back. And it's almost like this movie that she's making is making her go mad. And that's kind of what's almost exactly what's happening with Perfect Blue. She stops becoming a pop star and wants to be an actress. And as she's making the movie, he kind of slips out of reality and snaps back. I'm like, I'm watching it. Damn it. Everyone's ripping off Satoshi Kon. But yeah, and I love Inland Empire, so clearly I love this too, because it was the, as you say, the scribblings version of that. And I believe Bruce, you mentioned that was it this one you said had kind of giallo elements to it?
Yeah, I rewatched. So actually rewatched Perfect Blue and Millennium Actress again, but right before this, because I wanted to make sure they were really fresh in my mind. And there's a murder that happens, I would say, at about the 2/3 point in Perfect Blue, and I won't say who happens to. It does involve a screwdriver or an ice pick. I couldn't quite tell. And I thought that was super giallo how that ran out. And there's that weird background music-y sound that kind of occurs in some of the more tense scenes in here that even almost slightly goblinish. But I mean, the way that orchestrated out that murder was super giallo. Or like I was telling Greg, I mean, you could even see some elements of De Palma in this movie. Just the kind of the overheated elements of it, and the way it kind of plays out is pretty interesting.
Well,
and also,
oh, go ahead, Bruce.
Go ahead. Oh, you go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I like the term overheated. This is an overheated movie, and it has giallo and Brian De Palma Hitchcockian elements. The idea, like you were saying, Eric, it centers on this pop idol. She's at sort of the peak of her powers, but she's seeing that there's a ceiling being part of this trio, this girl pop group, and she decides to leave and embark on an acting career. And a lot of the acting, she realizes that she might not be as popular, and she has to start off from the bottom. And we see these surrealistic elements where her real life blends in with the respective movie she is shooting on that day. Meanwhile, there is a weird looking, maybe disfigured, tall stalker who is following her every move. This was released in 97. So the advent of the internet and home pages were a big thing. And she finds herself actually realizing someone has made a fan page of, what's the girl's name? Mima. That's her name, the main character. Mima realizes when she starts learning how to use a computer that someone has created a fan page dedicated to her. And she starts to realize, Bruce, that the fan page may be actually more real than who she is actually in by herself in the apartment. So, Bruce, can you just talk about some of those really weird multi-layers that make
Yeah,
Perfect
well,
Blue interesting? Yeah.
this does some things that are super interesting, and it's one of those movies that turns out to be super prophetic. I mean, you watch it now and it really is crazy to think this was made in 97. I mean, the computer technology you see in here, of course, is 97, and the fact that they have to show her how to use a web page and stuff like that is really funny now. But the fact that it has to deal with avatars and virtual identities online, and how the virtual identities become more real, and how there's this weird toxic fandom, and how, you know, her public persona is like judged based on her new public persona. There's like a whole bunch of stuff going on there that's super, super relevant, like now, super relevant 10 years ago, and probably kind of confusing to people 20 years ago, you know, when this came out, 23 years ago. So I think that aspect is really super fascinating in this movie. It also plays a lot on, I was reading about this, on otaku, which is like anime fandom. And Satoshi Kon plays a lot with this because that's kind of a super hardcore fan that like is to the point of, like we said, idolizing, right? So when their idol, in this case, she's one of those teen pop idols at the beginning, when their idol changes their image, they can take it really personally. And it's kind of where you see that real like stalkery kind of mentality coming out. And it plays a lot with that in this movie, but it plays a lot with some other things too. And that is her own identity and how she kind of becomes fractured and all kinds of weird stuff happens. I think it's really interesting and really, it's just fun on a surface level, I think, as just a, like I said, an overheated thriller, psycho thriller. Like I said, you could totally imagine some of these characters and the twists towards the end being in a De Palma movie. I could see that happening. You know what I mean, right, Greg?
Yeah. And like a De Palma movie, like a De Palma movie, Perfect Blue really doesn't mind going overboard when it comes to sexuality, really suggestive scenes within this anime universe. Also, what I find interesting about Perfect Blue, you've seen it several times, at least 2 times, Bruce, is the visual complexities of the movie. There are certain scenes, and Eric, do you agree with this? There are certain scenes in the movie that really stick with you. I'm
Yeah.
thinking the chase sequence from lamppost to lamppost. There's a running sequence, and there's the kill moments. Did you find visually, Eric, that this to be a memorable film as well? As far
Oddly enough, this, and you know, there's depending if you'll watch the dub version or not. If you ever watch a movie with subtitles and then you go back, I'm assuming you guys have the same thing I do. You remember the movie as if they're speaking English. I never remember reading subtitles. I know I did, but I always have the dialogue in my head is English when I'm remembering a movie. More so this one than Paprika, because Paprika's so out there. But this one I remember as a movie. I don't remember this as an animated film. And then to your point about like the certain scenes, don't want to get into it, but there's scenes at the end, the way they use mirrors because of the character that we see and who the character really is. And that, like, it seems like that like, I don't know, that it's just really cinematic. So I always
Yes.
I remember that as if I'm watching a regular movie shot on camera as opposed to watching animated feature. And I don't know why, but I do.
I am so glad I saw Perfect Blue. This is an amazing film. It's currently, Eric and Bruce, you guys are all about seeing stuff streaming for free as far as value added stuff, you know, as you know, collect our pennies, man. Collect our pennies and try to watch things as free as much as possible. So the good news is Satoshi Kon is such an artist that buying Blu-rays of his work, in our opinion, is not a waste of money. Eventually, I'm going to get to the Blu-ray stuff. But listeners, you can check out Perfect Blue on Hoopla. If you have a library card, Hoopla is a very great streaming service. There's another even better, Hoopla is still great. There's an even better service that I go to that we're going to be talking about regarding Millennium Actress. But Bruce, your thoughts on Darren Aronofsky and his love
Yeah.
for Satoshi Kon. And I ended up rewatching the ending of Black Swan. And, in a weird way, I do appreciate Black Swan on a deeper level because I know the frame of reference.
Right.
But could we take it the other way, Bruce? Could you take it the other way or no?
I,
No.
I'm fine with Aronofsky. I mean, I think that what he does is pretty great with Black Swan. But first of all, the little history is Aronofsky bought the rights to Perfect Blue. And he originally was going to make a live action version of Perfect Blue. For whatever reason, that kind of fell through. He used an exact shot because he owned the rights to it in Requiem for a Dream. And you probably have watched that now, Greg, but there's a shot where you see in Requiem for a Dream, she's seen from above, like down in a bathtub, and she has her face underwater and she screams underwater or yells underwater. That's an exact shot for shot duplicate of Perfect Blue. And then Black Swan has a ton of shots and thematics, and the character's named Nina, and she may be having some insanity with her. I mean, if you want to find them, there are a ton of parallels. And I just honestly think that, like, it's basically a soft remake of it, and it's a good remake. It's a good movie because it's a good movie the first time. So
I think, listeners, one of the things that I found really courageous about Perfect Blue and Aronofsky, he used it. I'm not going to give the ending away of Perfect Blue, but if you have seen the ending of Black Swan, the interpretation of the ending, whether the Natalie Portman character is alive or not, that's really up to you. Personally, Aronofsky has since stated that her character is alive. But the thing is, I'm not going to say what else happens to her character in Black Swan, but the denouement thematically is exactly the same climax
yes,
of Perfect Blue. And what's great about certain psychological thrillers, especially if you're a fan of Hitchcock or De Palma, this movie is that one of the many reasons why I love Perfect Blue, that it ends on such an amazing twist. You go, what just happened?
Yeah. And I actually honestly think Perfect Blue is like you said, it's spot for spot. It's the same basic movie, just done in a different setting. But I think Perfect Blue is deeper. I think it's a deeper character study than Black Swan.
And going back to the Avatar, I don't want to get into a big philosophical treatise of this. I was reading reviews about it, what the character Mima, when you analyze her character in Perfect Blue, there's so many things that are happening to her, right? Like the surrealism, we don't know. There might be a kill scene or there's something tragic that happens in her daily life. Nope. That's actually a scene that she's acting out in a movie. There's so many weird things, and there's so many colorful characters around her. Some of them are dying. Some of them may be doing other things. Ultimately, as her personal avatar is more interesting than who she is as a person. She really is a blank slate throughout the entire movie. And I don't know if Satoshi Kon was, like you were saying, Bruce, maybe sort of prophetic in what's going to happen. But today, I think we can really relate to what Perfect Blue is about, in the sense that a lot of these personalities or social media influencers in real life, IRL, they are just not as interesting as that avatar that they have going as them out in the universe. And I thought that was really amazing about Perfect Blue.
Well, yeah, and that and just the fact that she's kind of been like, she never even almost had a chance to have a real personality. Like, she's just kind of been shaped by all these different versions of herself that they've had. They had the pop idol version of herself, and they kind of told her what that's going to look like, and then she became an actress version. They told her, like, that's what's going to look like. And like you said, when you see her in her everyday, like, normal day life, all she's doing pretty much is like buying milk and fish food and like
and looking at her homepage, at the homepage that was made for her by a stranger, on how she should act as a person, right? Oh, this is who I should be internally. That's so interesting. So Perfect Blue, high recommendation from everyone on board. Eric, high recommendation for you for Perfect Blue as well?
Yes, but you said homepage made by a stranger, and then you can't talk about that. But if there was ever a movie to do spoiler discussion, I think this would be This would definitely be one. And yes, this gets very high marks. Yes, Perfect
Excellent.
Blue is perfect.
Perfect Blue is
Blue.
perfect. Perfect Blue is there's a song I used to love back in the 80s called Electric Blue. Do you guys remember that song?
I
Electric Blue.
do.
I can see every time you see through me. It's a vision
uh,
of you.
licensing
Perfect
Eric
Blue.
Holmes.
I
Eric Holmes, we
can.
don't want to get sued. We're not making money on the podcast.
That
Licensing.
song co-written by John Oates.
Wow, I did not know
Hmm.
that. John Oates was amazing. Yeah, I used to have a buddy who'd come. My late uncle's son. We used to listen to Hall and Oates together, and the only thing we talked about was how how underappreciated John Oates was. Even in the '80s, we knew the score. Thank you for that Electric Blue comment. Great song, by the way. Now, the bad news for you, Eric Holmes, unfortunately, Millennium Actress, you did not see. It's 2001. You're eventually going to see it because you love
Oh yeah.
movies. The reason why I'm saying it's a shame that you did not see it is because I have a feeling this movie would have. I don't know if Bruce, if you thought that I would have been so in love with Perfect Blue because of the De Palma essence of it all and Hitchcockian, but Millennium Actress, Eric Holmes, I think is one of the best stories I've actually witnessed in cinema. Full
I
stop. Full stop.
I am so happy to hear you say that because, and I'll let you keep talking, but I just was like, I wasn't sure about this one, but this is my favorite movie of his. This is my favorite movie.
I am going to share a tweet from a stranger on Twitter. I'm not going to mention this person's screen name because I don't want to be, karma, but I was looking up reactions after watching Millennium Actress. And Bruce, you're going to talk about what the movie's about in a second. But this person said, I miss Satoshi Kon. Every day I wake up and look at his films on a shelf near my bed. All the emotions I get from watching his masterpieces remind me of my humanity, my mortality, and I always suddenly feel what it means to be alive. And there's a GIF. Is it a GIF or a GIF? I'm going to just call it a GIF because I like Jiffy. Those like Giphy things, GIF, where you see the main character from Millennium Actress at the beginning, her being an astronaut in one of the movies. So I think that really says a lot about Satoshi Kon. We've seen Paprika, Eric Holmes, and you've seen Perfect Blue. And there's a lot of really cool things, I'm sure, with Paprika. You said there are sections that moved you. There's sections of Perfect Blue that are sublime. But this Millennium Actress, it will floor you. This is a game changer for me because I think because of Millennium Actress, I think I'm going to just really start. This is like Grave of the Fireflies level. If this is better than that movie,
Yes.
this is a masterwork. So
This, yeah, this is, I mean, I just want to say this, and we'll talk about what it actually is. This is a love letter to filmmaking, like probably almost unparalleled, in my opinion. And it's a love letter to the history of Japanese cinema, which I'm sure you recognize some of that, Greg.
yes,
And it's also what Citizen Kane kind of wanted to be, but this is better.
that sounds like sacrilege, and actually it is, but it's actually accurate. It's accurate. It's
Yeah.
are you saying Citizen Kane is a little bit overrated? Don't go the Anderson counter out with me, Bruce. Are you saying Citizen? Okay, I'll forgive you for that. But can you tell us sort of? This is such a hard thing, Bruce. Can you sort of sum up
it's
Millennium
it's a
Actress?
simple concept, right? So it's actually easy to describe the concept. So the concept is this: you have an actress, Chiyoko. She's an aged actress. She's been out of the scene for 30 years, and a filmmaker who's a fan, probably a middle-aged guy named Genya,
Okay.
and his cameraman Tachiban Tachibana, sorry. His cameraman and him go to her to interview her about her life and her filmmaking career. And that is the simple plot of this movie, but it is not simple in any way because basically, as she starts to tell her story from literally birth, um, and he starts out by presenting her a key that she had lost. That's kind of the beginning moment when he starts talking to her, and she's moved when she sees his key, and she thought she had lost it forever. And then it starts from her birth, and essentially you will follow her path through her movie career and her goal to, I don't know how much do you want to give away, Greg.
Well, I think we can give
Her
her.
goal to reach.
I think
Yeah,
we can give away. Well,
go ahead.
it, Bruce, you were mentioning Citizen Kane, and Eric, we all know
Yeah.
what the sled is. The sled is Rosebud, right? Spoiler alert for anyone. Yeah, Rosebud. Rosebud. Snow globe. No, yeah. So, yeah, no.
Mhm.
That's it. That's it, right? The Rosebud here, the
Yeah.
sled here, is the key. So if we just frame it as
Right.
it's a key given to this aged actress, and she's been sort of a hermit for most, I guess, the last quarter part of her life. She's been living in seclusion and in peace. We we try to find out, why did this key mean a lot to her? Why did this key that was presented to her from a relative stranger, how did that impact her life? Because I guess the furthest we can go, Bruce, is this actress decides to find the key that was given to her from this man, and her life's mission is to return that key and reunite with this man she had a chance encounter with. Right? So that
Right.
is
Yes.
right.
But what we have to say is we have to talk about the format of this movie because that's what's super special, right? The way it progresses.
Well,
How
you know
much
what?
can we say?
I think no, I think we can say a lot, because if you watch Millennium Actress and Perfect Blue like I did, I should have seen Perfect Blue first and then go into Millennium Actress. I made a big mistake
I told
because
you to do that.
he uses Eric. He uses the same. Uh, it, they're different movies, but he uses the same trick. Meaning, the main character in Perfect Blue. She is not understanding the reality of her day to day life with what's going on in front of the camera, and that mechanism is used to a more human and resonant effect with Millennium Actress. So you see her point A to point B to point Z life while she's acting in different movies, but you also become disoriented because you don't know if she's actually is sometimes it might be a flashback that's being told from her point of view. Sometimes it's a flashback that maybe the director who's trying to interview her is a part of. So it's can be very confusing in a good way, but that's right, Bruce. That's how they.
Yes. But I want to say that what makes it so good is that it's also just a fun story to follow. Like the action that's going on throughout it is entertaining in its own right. And I want to describe because it's really also playing with the idea as a viewer of movies, how when you experience that movie, you become like a part of that movie in your mind, and it plays off of that as well. So that this guy who's interviewing her is also kind of a fanboy. He's really a fanboy in a lot of it, and he's imagining himself in these great dramatic scenes that she's in, which are also kind of scenes of her life, but they're also scenes in the movie, and it's all interwoven in such a unique and gorgeous way. And then his cameraman is kind of the voice of the audience, is like, really, you're gonna cry again? Like he's the sardonic voice that's kind of being dragged along, and the cameraman is awesome because when fanboy interviewer is like crying because she's at the train station in that classic scene where the train goes away,
Yeah.
and he's like, really, how many times are you gonna cry, dude? He says something like that, and you're just like, oh, that's awesome. So those kind of little moments of comic relief ground it and give the viewer kind of a moment to go like, okay, this movie knows that it's being over dramatic here too, and you can accept it even more so because of that, because it doesn't just totally go with the drama. But I have to say, when it all is said and done, this movie is emotionally,
It kills you. It really
oh.
does. It
And I
really.
watched it again to make sure I wasn't crazy. I watched it right before we came on to talk about it, and I was hit again with it. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Well, Eric, the movie posits a very interesting, interesting theme that we don't really talk about in cinema, and that is, if you are a movie fan or a fan of maybe you for this specific movie, if you're a fan of cinema, do you want to live your life within the doctrines of what is your idea of life, the illusion that you have of the life that you're living, whether it's through watching cinema? Are you fine with living that illusion and going on with it, the idea of it, or is actually getting the truth and harsh reality of what happened the better way to go about your life? And that is a very hard question to answer. And Millennium Actress, I'm not going to tell you if it answers it or not, but what it does do is it gives you these options, and it makes you realize that, the idea of MacGuffins can be very frustrating if not properly used. And in this movie, the MacGuffin is used in such an amazing way. And I thought there is even a very profound moment when you realize something happened and you go, what the F? And it's actually done in a very subtle fashion. It's just part of the whole collection of sequences that go on. You go, oh my God, that just happened. So I
Yeah.
thought it's a subtle film. It's a beautifully mounted production. It's ambitious storytelling without being self-conscious. It feels like, so I have a feeling that I haven't seen, what is it? Was it Tokyo Godfathers? Is that the other movie that he did? What was the
Yeah.
other? Yeah. Okay. So I'm excited to see that one, but I'm assuming, I just have a feeling that he really put his heart and soul into Millennium Actress.
Yeah, I always feel from what I've seen, and of course we only got to see so many movies from him, but I got to feel that this is really an important movie to him. I feel like he really got to make a movie he wanted to make. A couple things I want to mention too, like as we talk about progressing through all the periods of film, you can find videos online where they show certain shots and you can see what famous historical movies from Japan that these are actually giving homage to, as well as being part of this movie. And even the way he changes the animation style throughout the movie um, is beautiful, depending on the age of the movie that
Wow.
she's supposedly in. One thing I want to also mention was that they think that it's based just vaguely, her character is based on Setsuko Hara,
Yeah.
who was in Ozu's movies, especially known for Late Spring and Tokyo Story.
Yeah.
So they think that she's kind of roughly based on that actress as well. Um, Perfect example. So you probably remember this, Greg, because you saw it just recently too. There's this one sequence where she rides off on a horse, and then there's almost a montage where she's riding on the horse, and the animation style and the way the things happen as she changes is one of the most beautiful things I've seen, like, ever. And there's multiple scenes like that in this movie. Once again, to Eric's point from the earlier movie from Perfect Blue, is that this, like he said, he imagines it as a movie, not a animated movie. This movie's like that too, right? It's just
Yeah.
cinematic.
No,
It's gorgeous.
I don't even consider this an animated film. This is one of those things where, you know, what is it? What's that
Yeah.
Studio Gilby? We've always
Yeah.
been rammed with the whole Spirited Away stuff, and I know all that stuff is great. I've seen a lot of their stuff, but this is a game changer. Eric Holmes, that you are now assigned to it for maybe a next week rewind for Millennium Actress. You will be floored by this film.
Right.
It really, I think I wouldn't be surprised. You might even shed a little bit of a tear. I think,
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
and
I did want to ask, and Bruce, you'll remember I mentioned before that I knew that he had passed. Oh, he's got a new one coming out. He responded, "No, he doesn't. I think he's gonna finish it." And but I was just thinking of that because Paprika and Perfect Blue are wonderful. You guys sold me on Millennium Actress, even though I was gonna go hit his other stuff anyway. But yeah, it's just looking at that IMDb and that movie hanging there, and I'm just
Dreaming
looking
Machine.
at, what is that?
Dreaming Machine.
What?
And this is the really,
that?
this is the really the tragic part about it is he was working on a movie called Dreaming Machine. This was going to be his first children's movie, but I'm sure through his lens it would still be incredibly different.
yeah.
And he had storyboarded the whole thing. He had done all the character creation and everything. So you can find a bunch of images of what Dreaming Machine kind of would have looked like. But he died, obviously before they got into the real production of it. And they even talked about producing it, but eventually his co-creators and, collaborators were like, no one can do it justice. So they literally just have not done it because they just don't believe they could do a good enough job. And I actually applaud them for that. If they actually say like, you know what, we can't do this, like they know they don't have the skill, the ability to do it in the way he would have done it. I mean, that's commendable and surprising in this day and age. So it's tragic, and I want to see it too, but it's never going to be seen, and we just have to look at the stills and end with that, I guess.
It is another thing that kind of makes me think when I see really good filmmakers go and do like a X-Men or a Marvel movie or whatever, you only get so many movies. Satoshi Kon only had 4 of them before he died. And then there's that one that's hanging there. Now imagine if one of those 4 was a Star Wars, or one of those 4 was an Ant-Man or whatever. That could have been Millennium Actress that's not there. For sure Paprika's gone because that's the last one. So take that one off the,
Yeah.
And so it really illustrates and again, there are directors and filmmakers that can do those movies. The Jon Favreau's of the world. I don't think we're missing a great Jon Favreau movie every time he does the Iron Man. But whenever the Hollywood machine takes really interesting filmmakers, I see that dream machine, and that's the move. Every time an interesting filmmaker does that, when they eventually die, that dream machine is going to be sitting on top of their IMDb, and we're never going to see what that was.
Yeah. Well, it just in my fantasy, can you imagine, Bruce, if someone had 120 to 150 million dollars to blow and just said, "Here, Darren Aronofsky, can you make Millennium Actress and see, do you want to do that? Do you think that movie will ever get made into live action, or is it just you can't pay for that kind of thing?"
Yeah, you can't. The thing you can't do is that you can't do the art. And that's the other piece of this. That's the difference that you get with a great animation that's cinematic like this, is that you have a great director, a great writer, and he is actually, instead of filming the images, he's literally drawing the images. So you'd have to have an artist that had that, and that's what makes it's so unique, is it's actually an artist and it's actually drawn paintings, basically. I mean, look at Millennium Actress. That's what makes it stunning movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you could ever do it. You can never do it.
And it's such an insular film. There are that actress who's the main character in this. There are many life events that happen in her life, but ultimately, I don't know if you agree with this, Bruce. Ultimately, what you get from her life is it's really about this one moment in time and how that moment continues to reverberate through the generations of her life. And that by ignoring the mundane facts of her life, it speaks to all of us, because I think many of us have that moment in life that still we go back to time and time again, and we don't know if it's true or not, or we don't know how important that moment is. Will it fade away, or will we hold on to that situation? I thought this was an amazing film. So thank you for that. Wow. Do you have that on Blu-ray, Millennium Actress?
I do. Yeah, I do. I just watched it today.
Are there special features on this, or it's a GK Kids kind of situation?
They have a little bit on this one, and Perfect Blue has a little bit of an interview with Satoshi Kon. There isn't a ton of stuff out there, unfortunately. It's mostly people who have gone crazy over these movies, because I mean, we're late to the game on this, guys.
We are so late to the game.
So that's what kind of reason I brought it to us, is because I feel like there's a certain movie watcher and age group especially who may not go down this road, and I think you need to go down this road. But you can go and find so much. I mean, I sent you just a couple. I mean, people have done just color theory on Perfect Blue and what all the reds, just on the color red in Perfect Blue and what it means. And Millennium Actress, people have gone through and just looked at every scene and what movie it's taking off on, and oh my gosh. And it's like you can draw maps like you could for Nolan, as far as like connecting everything. But there isn't a ton of extra stuff on the ones I have. So,
all right. So, folks, Millennium Actress, one of my favorite stories in cinema, and Bruce concurs. Thank you so much for that. recommendation. By the way, because we are groupthink, Eric Holmes better concur when he sees it next week. You better. But okay, so that
Sure will.
yeah. Millennium Actress, folks, is available. If you do not want to spend for the DVD, it's available on Hoopla. Okay, Hoopla, and also Canopy. Canopy is available if you have a library card as well. Bruce has been pounding the boards for his local library to carry the Canopy streaming service. Which, by the way,
I
Bruce,
literally wrote them a letter to tell them to get the damn thing.
yeah, Eric Holmes, if you check in your local area, if Canopy, Kanopy, is available, if it is available, make use of it, man. Their selection on cinema is amazing. Okay, finally, Paprika, it's available for rental, not streaming. So Vudu, Apple TV, Google Play, YouTube, everywhere. So if you want to rent Paprika, it's out there. Eric Holmes, final things you want to say about Satoshi Kon? Any final thoughts regarding this?
I would say between renting and buying, just buy it. There's no way you can just watch these movies once. I don't even know how you could possibly even do that and not want to revisit them over and over again. But yeah, thanks, Bruce. This was like you said, we're late to the party. Have you guys heard of this Kubrick guy? I hear he's really good.
He's pretty good. I hear.
As soon as you said that, that's what I was thinking in my head. I'm like, yeah, we kind of.
It's crazy to say that, but it's almost like you feel like he could have been to that level if he kept going. And what he made is it's honestly that good. I feel like.
Yeah. Well, Millennium Actress, again, like I said, game changer for me, listeners. I highly recommend Millennium Actress. I'm thinking about movies about love for cinema. And for me, it was Cinema Paradiso. And I'm sorry to say this, but Millennium Actress kicks Cinema Paradiso on its ASS. It's such an amazing, this is a 5-star film for me, easy. So that's my final thoughts on Satoshi Kon. I was pleasantly surprised at the quality of Perfect Blue, another excellent film. But if you want to go, even if you're not a fan of animation, please see Millennium Actress. If you're a fan of cinema, okay? And if you're a fan of animation, even better. Bruce, we're going to close out with you on Satoshi Kon.
I would just say, once again, if you have any trepidation, kind of like Greg did in going into anime or animation and think that it's just not your cup of tea and you love movies, Satoshi Kon is someone that has something for you. If you want a thriller, you got Perfect Blue, but it's also mind-bending. If you want total mind-bending Nolan, you've got Paprika. And we haven't even talked about Tokyo Godfathers, which is his most humorous movie and a Christmas movie, for God's sake. And then on top of that, the most beautiful and emotional movie of all of his, which I think is Millennium Actress, which is honestly a classic movie of all time. And if nothing else, that's the one.
Yeah. And I'm not going to steal your thunder. We forgot to mention, Bruce, even if Millennium Actress, if you don't like the touchy-feely stuff, it's still visually, right? It's still a masterpiece.
It's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. And these aren't long movies. They're like 90 minutes.
You're right. They're very quick. Just like me. That's why I don't date. That's why I don't date. But it's Satoshi Kon. Thank you, Bruce, for as you continue to laugh. It's my turn for the next director spotlight. I don't know. I was thinking of doing Philip Kaufman for The Wanderers. I'm thinking about it. I don't know yet. So eventually, folks, we're gonna get there. But check out our past episodes where we talk about William Friedkin, Joseph H. Lewis, Mario Bava, and Dario Argento. That's all part of our Find Your Film feed. We will see you very, very soon. We're going to pop up in your feed very shortly because we also have our weekly Find Your Film weekly movie recommendations, which we're going to get to right now. All right, guys, take care.